For 19 years, one man emptied his victims into rivers and ravines and treated their bodies like trash he needed gone. Nobody could catch him. He wasn't a shadow in the dark. He was a smiling husband who danced to country music and played with his grandchildren. His wife loved him for 13 years and never once suspected. Then he looked at his own lawyers and said, "I killed them all." To understand how it happened, you have to go back to a strip of asphalt outside Seattle, where nobody was really watching who came and went. The old Highway 99 ran right past SeaTac Airport. Locals just called it the Strip, and 3 decades ago it had a bad reputation for a reason. Topless bars lined the road. Motels rented rooms by the hour. Its population was transient, drifting through, easy to lose. Detective Faye Brooks worked sex crimes here, and she knew the young women on these streets by more than their reputations. Most of them were barely more than girls. A lot had fled abusive homes, and Brooks, a survivor of childhood sexual abuse herself, saw her own story in theirs. Whatever their pasts, she said, every one of them was somebody's daughter, somebody's sister. One of them was Marcia Chapman, 31 years old, statuesque, a mother of 3 who couldn't feed them on the wages she could find. Her apartment was almost empty, her luck long gone. She had reported being raped, the kind of danger these streets handed out routinely. Just a few blocks over lived Ann Rule, a crime writer. Now and then she'd flag the girls down to mention that murder was the subject she made her living on. Most of the time they simply shrugged it off and kept walking. In 1982, the abstract danger became something you could see. A man in a boat on the Green River spotted what he took for a mannequin drifting below the surface. What looked like a mannequin turned out to be a woman, and lying near her was another. The current tugged at one victim's hand until it drifted upward, almost like a plea for rescue that had arrived far too late. Then, as investigators worked the scene, they found a third body on the bank. All 3 lay within a few feet of each other. One hand had left them there. The FBI had a name for the mind behind this, an organized killer, cold, methodical, efficient, and utterly empty of feeling for the people he destroyed. To him, a victim was never a person. She was an object for his excitement. In plain terms, the profiler said, a sexual psychopath. The 3 had names: 16-year-old Opal Mills, 17-year-old Cynthia Jean Hines, and Marcia Chapman, 31, the mother of 3. When Faye Brooks learned one of them was Marcia, the words wouldn't come. Somebody killed her. It was the only thought she could hold. Nobody understood yet that this was only the opening move, or that the man responsible would stay a mystery for a very long time. The Strip had given the killer a hunting ground rich enough to build a body count no American murderer had ever reached. By autumn 1982, 5 young women were dead. On the 15th of September 1982, 18-year-old Mary Bridget Meehan vanished. She came from a wealthy Catholic family in Bellevue, but she drifted far from it. She had gotten involved with a boyfriend called Ray and settled into a rundown motel. Once she failed to return, her relatives were beside themselves, all the more so because Bridget was 8.5 months along in her pregnancy. Then came September 20th, 5 days later, when Deborah Lorraine Estes, only 15, was gone as well. You could almost feel the pattern taking shape, and still the man behind it stayed invisible, a shadow no one could name. Detectives sat on this very stretch of road watching the traffic, trying to guess which passing face belonged to the man they were hunting. On the 26th of September, 16-year-old Linda Jane Rule went missing near the Northgate Mall. Slender, blonde, working the streets under a boyfriend who acted as her pimp. He seemed to smell weakness. He passed over the streetwise women and reached for the youngest, the ones least able to sense the danger. By the close of 1982, 15 girls were missing or dead. The sheriff's task force was buckling under the pressure, and the rumors were getting wild. Some whispered the killer might be a cop, given how easily he moved among these women. Others on the street feared the police just didn't care about runaways. It wasn't true, Brooks insisted. Every detective on that case treated the victims like their own children and wanted nothing more than to end it. Then, on the 30th of April, 1983, the killer nearly gave himself away. A young woman named Maria Malvar was at a highway restaurant with her boyfriend. He stepped away to make a phone call. When he came back, Maria was gone. He hurried onto the highway and spotted her, sitting in a truck just ahead, talking to a stranger. He followed. At the light where Highway 99 crosses 216th, the truck turned left, and in an instant it was gone. But he refused to let it end there. He returned with Maria's family and combed the side streets until they found that pickup, parked in a quiet cul-de-sac outside a modest house. The house belonged to a local truck painter, and the family pleaded with police to go inside. When a sergeant rapped on the door, the man who answered claimed he was the only person in the house, and that was enough for them to move on. That was the killer's genius. He could look so ordinary, so harmless, that he disarmed the very people who feared him. The profilers called him the Olympiad of liars. His name was filed away by the task force alongside hundreds of others, and in time, they even collected a saliva swab from him. Even so, the disappearances continued. Count them up, and by the middle of 1983, the tally had reached 26 girls, and not one fewer. Every disappearance seemed to teach him something. He chose places that were remote and dark, and he left almost nothing of himself behind. That summer swallowed 5 more. Autumn, 5 more still. Some were left in the mountain foothills, some down in the Green River Valley. He was always a step ahead. By the winter and spring of 1984, 4 more had disappeared, and now he wasn't leaving them one at a time. Detectives were finding 3, 4, even 5 bodies in a single spot. He was dumping women, one detective said, like they were garbage. Near the airport, one dark, deserted site let him arrive, leave a body, and vanish in minutes. Among the remains they uncovered were the skeletal bones of 16-year-old Linda Jane Rule, hidden beneath a bush. And in the scrubland south of the airport, they finally learned the fate of Mary Bridget Meehan. She'd been raped, murdered, and buried with her unborn baby in a shallow grave. Come the spring of 1984, his tally had passed 40 victims. Then, with no warning at all, the killing seemed to fall silent. Many hoped he was gone for good, but experts knew better. A serial killer almost never simply stops. He stops when he's caught or when he dies. In 1985, that very truck painter, the resident of the hushed cul-de-sac, struck up a relationship with a divorced mother of 40 named Judith. To Judith, he was the perfect gentleman. Polite, gentle, always smiling, never angry. She said it was love at first sight. Within months, she moved into his house. He even let her pick out new carpet, explaining that a previous renter's little one had wet the old one. It just needed a woman's touch. 3 years later, in 1988, they married. He was good to her daughters, tender with her grandchildren. She thought her dreams were finally coming true. For 13 years, she lived that happy marriage, while the rest of the world let the Green River case fade into memory. The whole thing slipped from public memory, but the investigators of the Green River Task Force refused to let go, keeping the case alive. Then, in 2001, forensic science finally caught up with the killer. With DNA techniques steadily improving, the case finally offered a lever. Investigators could now take material from the women killed at the very beginning, Marcia Chapman included, and match it against samples that had been drawn from men questioned long before. They set Marcia's DNA beside the killer's and stared. They were the same. Exactly the same. The swab belonged to Judith's husband. His name was Gary Ridgway. The gentle truck painter she'd loved for 13 years was the most prolific serial killer in United States history. When they told Judith, she went numb. Disbelief, then denial. She simply couldn't accept that the man beside her every night was that man. Prosecutors knew at once this would be the biggest criminal case in Washington's history, a suspect tied to more than 4 dozen homicides. The lawyers braced themselves to meet a monster. They imagined crying, madness, something extraordinary. Instead, a small, unremarkable man walked in. That's the man who eluded everyone for years, they thought. He chatted about the mattress in his cell, about the heat. If you didn't know what he'd done, you'd have liked him. So who was Gary Ridgway? He was born in 1949, the middle of 3 boys, in a small house not far from the very strip he would one day hunt. For the county, his father worked behind the wheel of a bus. On occasion, the boy Gary tagged along, and his father would gesture toward the prostitutes, dismissing them as filthy, worthless, the lowest of the low. Once, the story goes, his father left him waiting in that bus while he went off to have sex with one of those same women. At school, Gary barely registered. Quiet, withdrawn, a little pipsqueak in the shadows. But his mother, Mary, nobody forgot. She came to parents' evenings in a towering bouffant and heavy makeup, tight low-cut tops and short skirts, glamorous in a way the other mothers simply weren't. Gary wet the bed deep into his teens. When he did, his mother would bathe him and wash his genitals. During one such bath, her robe fell open, and the boy felt an arousal he knew he shouldn't. Psychologists say a boy needs to see his mother as untouchable. When she becomes something sexual, it destabilizes him at the worst possible age. In Gary, something was quietly warping. As a teenager, he started fires, then he took a darker step. He spotted a 6-year-old boy playing cowboys and Indians in a nearby lot. He lured the child into the bushes, and without any reason at all, stabbed him in the stomach, nearly killing him. He wanted, he said, to know what it felt like to kill somebody. He calmly wiped the blade on the boy's shoulder and walked away. No one ever tied him to it. Investigators call this the trial run, the killer's first experiment. Graduation came for him 2 years behind schedule. By 21, he had wed his longtime girlfriend and enlisted in the Navy, only to return from the Philippines and hear her admit to both a miscarriage and an affair. That was when he first began calling her a whore. It set the shape of every failed relationship to come. Around then, he got the spray painting job at Kenworth Trucks that would define him. His next marriage produced a son before it too fell apart, his wife walking out around the time the boy turned 5. The blow drove him toward prostitutes, and he came to describe himself as hooked on them. Police had questioned him about the strip more than once in the 1980s. He even passed a lie detector test about the Green River murders. A man without a conscience, experts say, sails through them. For years, he lied to Judith, too. When she visited the jail, he swore he never hurt those women, never killed them, and she believed him. Right up to 2001, his defense was simple. Wrong man, plenty of sex, no murders. Then forensic evidence tied him to 3 more victims, and his whole story cracked. 2 attorneys were smiling about something when he entered the room. He looked at them and said, "You won't be smiling when we're done. I've been manipulating everyone for years. I killed them all." In 2003, at 54, the truck painter admitted he was the Green River Killer. Faced with the death penalty, he made a bargain. The truth about every crime in exchange for his life. For the families who needed to know where their loved ones lay, the prosecution agreed, and Ridgway began to describe the true horror of what he'd done. His disguise was his ordinariness. He once picked up a woman with his own child sitting in the car, a little man who looked like a mouse, a family man, someone you'd never fear. He preferred to take them home, to a bedroom where photos of his son hung on the wall and made them feel safe. Others he lured into the canopy on the back of his pickup. Once he had them where he wanted, he would strike his forearm around their throat, telling them not to fight, and he'd let them go. He never let them go. He strangled every one. Then he led investigators back to the dumping grounds, drives up wooded hills, pull-offs, ravines, reciting where he'd left dozens of young women. He couldn't recall their faces or their names. They were nothing to him, he said, just objects. What he remembered precisely was where the bodies were. One site held Marie Malvar, the 18-year-old whose boyfriend had trailed his truck. She'd fought harder than any of them. He'd poured battery acid on his skin to hide her scratches. His rage didn't stop at death. He admitted trying to set the hair of 16-year-old Linda Rule's lifeless body on fire, punishing women, he claimed, for everyone who'd ever disappointed him. Then came the confession that chilled even the investigators. He returned to some of the bodies, days later, to have sex with them, describing it as calmly as ordering lunch. Why? The textbook answer is control, a body that cannot resist. But his own reason was simpler and colder. That way, he said, he didn't have to pay for it. His killing had raged from 1982 to 1985, perhaps 60 victims in those 3 years. Then he met Judith, and as he put it, he climbed onto the wagon and mostly stayed there. But he fell off it. He'd phoned Judith to say he was grabbing a hamburger, running late, stopping at the junkyard. Sometimes, she now realized he was out on Highway 99, killing again. From 1985 until his capture in 2001, the toll was smaller, 10 or 11 more. But by then, Judith had shared a home, a bed, a life with America's deadliest serial killer. In court, the judge read out name after name, 48 charges of aggravated murder. To each one, Ridgway answered a single flat word: guilty, guilty, guilty. Judith sat and listened as her husband confessed to killing Marcia Chapman, Mary Meehan, Linda Rule, 48 women in all, and only then did it become real to her. The man who walked out her door each morning, she said, was not the man she knew, and she understood, chillingly, that he could have killed her, her daughters, her grandbabies, at any time. So where did this monster come from? Was it the mother with her unsettling sexualized behavior, or the father who paid him no mind, or had Gary Ridgway arrived in the world already destined to kill? Some experts argued no child is born to kill, but a few carry a predisposition. Raise that child in fear and abuse, they said, and you have the perfect soil to grow a serial killer. Others were certain the wiring was there from birth, a psychopath's brain miswired from the start, and some insisted it came down to choice, that he decided again and again exactly who to be. 19 years after Marcia Chapman was pulled from the Green River, Gary Ridgway was sentenced to 48 consecutive life terms with no possibility of parole. Fittingly, it was Marcia who brought him down. The DNA left on her body was the match to his. Faye Brooks reflected that, after so many years, Marcia had finally gotten her reckoning, and she called it a good day. Before he was led away, Judge Richard Jones made him turn and face the families. The rage they had carried for 2 decades finally poured out. One woman told him she was the daughter who once waited at home for a mother who never came back. They wanted him to carry their agony into his cell forever. Then the father of Linda Rule stood up. He told the killer that plenty of people in that room hated him, but he was not among them, because his faith commanded him to forgive everyone, and so he pronounced the man forgiven. In that single room sat the most inhuman cruelty and the most human mercy, 15 feet apart. A grieving mother spoke last, praying that her firstborn and the 47 other victims could finally rest in peace.